Welcome on in, everybody, to the Tack Box Podcast. We are here. I don't even know what episode number we're on anymore. I got my co-host Dale with me over here. We're on like 6 or 7, so we're coming up to that big number 10. Dale, how are you doing?
Good. Hey, we're rolling on into the double digits. It's going to be happening.
Yeah, and you know when you take on an endeavor like this, it went very fast. It went through a messaging conversation of what do you think about this to hey, we're doing this to now we're almost on episode 10 and we're getting some good feedback from people. We're getting some messages, so it's an exciting time. We're still babies at this, but we're also growing very quickly and learning a lot along the way.
We haven't even gotten canceled or anything yet. I mean, we've come close, but we haven't.
Hey, I haven't had a lawsuit. I haven't had a uh what I haven't had a lawyer reach out to me. I haven't had nasty comments yet. So either my spam filter is catching them really good, or we're not pissing off nearly as many people as we should be.
I know we got to bring our amp up our game again a little bit.
We gotta start blurring some lines a little bit here.
That's right.
Uh,
What
so
are we talking about today?
today we are gonna jump into something that's been on my mind a lot lately, and that's whelping. So we got somebody here, we got Dale over here who's got tons of experience, has whelped thousands of puppies. I would assume it's in the thousands of puppies. And you got me who's getting ready to think about whelping, or who is actively thinking about whelping and is an over preparer. And it's like I got vet fleece showing up one day and whelping box materials one day, and towels and supplements and all the things. And so it's been on my mind, and I thought, what better time to do a whelping episode than right now, where we can spend an hour talking about whelping and some best practices on it. So we'll jump right into that. Before we jump right in, though, just make sure that you guys are subscribed to our podcast in whatever network that you listen to podcasts on, or on the Google machine known as YouTube, which, interesting enough, is like the second biggest search engine in on the internet is YouTube. We don't really think of that as a search engine, but it's the second biggest search engine on the internet, right behind Google. So all owned by the same company. Talk about a monopoly there. My gosh. Um,
Or I'm trying to find out how to put the toilet back together after I'm changing pieces up. Like, go on YouTube, get a video so we can see how to do it.
yeah, it really surprises me how like I'd say like our generation. I'm just gonna classify you and me as the same generation. I classify our generation like we're right on the cusp. Is like when we started to get into home ownership, the internet was coming around to where you could start YouTubing stuff. But it's like you remember growing up and your parents had like a book, like a DIY household book, and it was like something happened. They were looking through this book trying to figure out like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing. Or you'd go to Ace Hardware and actually talk to somebody and try to get directions on
Fill
how to
in the
do
blanks
something.
for dummies type of thing. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
So
as
on that right now, we're going to go ahead and do whelping for dummies
yeah. See,
because
so what a
but
segue into whelping. So we can call this whelping for dummies. We could probably write a book, or we can call it whelping 101. I don't know.
yeah, so I'm going to tell you, you cannot be over prepared for whelping there because how it's going to go, it's either going to go really good or it's going to go really bad, and it's all your fault. So how much you put into it is how much you're going to get back out of it, and there's no guarantees in breeding. We like to think if we do this, and this, we're going to get all of these perfect babies, and it's going to be like those Walt Disney moments. No, no guarantees, a zero. Uh, but what you're really starting out to do is we've already picked our breeding. Let's say we've come up with our breeding, and we've already picked out our stud dog, and we know how much inbreeding coefficiency. We've done whatever applicable health tests are. We figured out as we've done as much of the background work as we can to be prepared. Now our bitch is in heat, and so that's step one, and we want to kind of hopefully have a bunch of this in place before we go into it. because like what you were talking about, ordering stuff and being prepared. Then when then once you've got that started, then let's say we've already figured out our stud dog that we're going to use. That's three big options as far as how you want to do that. You can do what they call a live cover, which is natural breeding. You can do an artificial insemination, or you can do frozen semen or semen shipped in and they can do a TCI or a surgical insemination, all of those things. All of those are options that you can do. But the biggest and most important thing is that really is going to make or break your whelping experience is knowing when your bitch is bred. That is like the biggest, most crucial information. Like you know when she ovulated, those progesterone tests, priceless. Know when you've got her, she's ovulated. Know when you've got her bred. The idea of back in the day, people just like they let them run in the yard, you know, and like I think she's getting heavy, Ralph got her. Okay, this can go well, but it might not. Because when you're talking about that whelp, your attendance for that whelp is mandatory. You have got to be there. I mean, for the same odds of you coming back in and finding a whole basket full of puppies that she's all got all cleaned up and done, that can happen. You can also come back in and find her with a puppy half out of her and she's dead, and the whole litter's dead. That can happen too. Those are both realities, the equal chances. And that's where you start this adventure in breeding, is knowing that you are not guaranteed a live bitch or a live litter. That's why when I talk to pet people that are just have their dog and they love them and they say, "Well, should I breed them?" No, don't. Don't do it. Don't breed anything unless you are willing to take the steps and you're also going to be well with the reality that you are guaranteed nothing and that you are taking the chance that you could lose your bitch. It can happen. Every animal that is capable of getting pregnant is capable of having to have veterinary assistance in its whelp. I mean, there is no guarantees. You can say, well, her mama free whelped or she free whelped last time or all of these things. And you could say, well, maybe that statistically moves her up there. How that goes is 100%. So you've moved into the spot. You want to breed. You're gonna do it.
Yep. And I think something important for people to remember is like when you decide to breed, you don't know how many times I've heard people say, "Well, I'll just have a litter of puppies and I'll sell the puppies and everything will be fine." It's like that's the wrong reason to breed. Financial reasons, super wrong reason to breed. I'm kind of looking at it like you could breed a bitch that has 3 dogs and, you can think in your head, "Well, I'm gonna make $6,000 out of this." Well, what happens when you need a cesarean section and you just paid $3,000 to the vet for that cesarean section, and then you lose a puppy along the way, like, there's no like you said, there's no guarantees. That's something first and foremost to like even think about is like it might cost you money. Probably will cost your first litter will 100% cost you money. Like you're gonna lose money probably for quite a few litters. I mean, there's a lot to think about with supplies. You're not just whelping a dog in a bathtub. But let's talk timelines here. So you said you need to know when your bitch breeds. So you know when she's gonna breed. What does the next 2 months look like from the time where it's like, okay, I saw my dog's tie, she's bred. Now what? What do you do for the next 2 months?
Over that next month, we've got her bred. However we've come up with that, and we can talk later about other things like sending and semen and stuff. But we've got her bred. We've limited her breeding dates, so because we know her ovulation, because that is so important, because otherwise they can breed a week, 10 days. Well, that gives you a week, 10 days that they can whelp. And so that's that. I mean, and that's like they can be fine, and then all of a sudden, an hour later, be in labor. And so you go ahead and say, we're doing this breeding. We've got it bred over a 2 or 3 day window, and we're going to figure out day 60, day 60 through day 63. That's going to be our potential target dates. So we've got a couple of things that we have to do. We have 60 days. Start the clock, folks. And in this 60 days, you need to make a relationship with the veterinarian that is going to help you if things go wrong. This is not something you do at 11:30 at night while you're bitch in labor. This is not when you make the relationship. This is something that you're going to go ahead and you're going to involve the vets. She's bred, this is such and such. You're going to look at your calendar, you're going to talk to their calendar. If you might even have a plan B, like if this vet such and such might be such a, you might have a plan B, because once you get into that spot where they're in labor and you realize, oh, we need help. Well, that's not the time to go looking. This is the time to do this now. So how do you do your research on this? How do you say, well, I don't know how anything, I don't know repo vets. I don't know who's good at this. Find out people that have breeds that require a lot of veterinary assist, bulldogs, French bulldogs, American bulldogs, Pekingese. These people here, they know where you can get a cesarean section. They know who's breeder friendly. So you're going to go ahead. I mean, they don't have to be show dog people. They can just be breeders of pets or whatever. It doesn't matter. But they, find out so you can start to make your plan as to how you're going to do that. I remember many years, like 30 years ago, we picked up a dog from a client who got sick, and her bitch was bred. She thought she was due in like a week, and we're driving back through Beaumont, Texas, and she went into labor. And I'm like, oh my God, we are a long way from home. We are traveling. We have a dog in labor, and I don't know anybody here. And we stopped at a convenience store, and they had those little fold-out green sheets. And I called a lady that had bulldog puppies advertised, and I said, ma'am, this is really weird, and I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm traveling. I have a dog. I said, do you have a veterinarian? And she's like, and that's the one thing, dog breeders, they're kind of, we beat each other up, and we're sometimes not very nice to one another, but when we're all animal lovers, and when someone's in a bad spot with their animal, I don't even care if you like them or not, you're going to help them. And she was a lovely lady. She called her vet for me. I got the section, got the dog. I mean, it was like wonderful. It worked out great, but I didn't know, because I didn't do the breeding on the bitch. I didn't know when she was due. I mean, all of that. So those are things that you have that 60 days. You're going to make your arrangements with your vet. That's right off the top. You're going to make your arrangements with your schedule, because once that bitch goes into labor, or into that window where she could have labor, you don't leave her. You are going to be on, I don't care if you have to set the nanny cams up, you're going to be on, someone's going to be checking in on her, going to be watching her, see if she's digging up her towels, whether she's eating, temping her, all of the things you can do so you know when she's going to go in. So, I mean, because whoever is most attentive has the best results. So that's right off the bat. Then the next thing is, let's talk about the different breeds. You might have a breed that has Japanese chin, 1 to 3 puppies, maybe 4 puppies. Ooh, 4 puppies. 4 puppies, a whole total weight, mother and babies of less than 12 pounds. So, but that's a whole different experience than when you say had a litter of Great Pyrenees or Golden Retrievers. So like when you have those bigger breeds where you have a slew of puppies, that's a whole nother thing. You've got 8 weeks to have homes lined up for those puppies because in 6 weeks that she's done, and you got 2 more weeks to round up those shots, and you need to be hustling. You need to get your ads in. You need to let people know. You need to start. We're toy people. We are sloppy. We get around to it. We're not worried about it. It's not a big. It's a 4 pound problem. We're not worried about it. But big dog people, oh yeah, yeah. You start right away. Get those ads in. You start taking deposits. You start put your infrastructure in place to have homes lined up for those puppies because it's going to happen fast, and they're going to be ready to go, and they're going to, whatever your circumstances, that's going to change because start out, they're going to be in the whelping area, for like, because their eyes are, they have no eyes for 10 days, and then the eyes open up, and then you have over that next 4 weeks, then they're going to start eventually hitting into solid food. Once those babies hit solid food, mom's done cleaning them. So, okay, she's done cleaning them. That means you're now cleaning them. And that's the time when I like to see them start going, like the bigger dogs, like, my Cavaliers, I start them out going out to go to the bathroom, so that as soon as they start eating solid food, they're going out to go potty. So you really you got a action packed little thing in there where you've got to make your plans. You've got time, but you have to use it. You have to use it well. You have to have your plan in place. Who's going to be there, what we're going to do. You got to get these babies born. You got to get them registered. Get your marketplace up and going where you have with the AKC marketplace, and you can start figuring out like what do I think I might want to keep out of this litter? Is there anything that looks promising? Well, then you can start go ahead and taking deposits and all of that. But let's go back to the actual whelp, because that's when you have that chance where you can put your thumb on the scales of fate. You can help those little sea turtles get into the water before the gulls eat them. So when that bitch goes into labor, like with a toy breed, like that's a true toy that's like a single digit in weight, if they labor 2 hours and I don't have a puppy, I'm on my way to the vet. If it's Cavalier, I might push it out another hour and a half, 2 hours, let them work a little longer. But with the little dogs, you have a shorter window. And you always have to remember, every dog can have to have a section. You might have two puppies coming down at the same time. You might have one doing a handstand, have it coming rear first, breech presentation, all of those things. So you have to have that in hand. And like as my bitches whelp, I take the puppies away. I get it. We get them out, get the bags off, get get their little lungs cleared out using their little expressor bulbs, and then put them somewhere like in a warm box with a heating pad, and tend to mom. They're tending to mom, watching her, because after the first one, then the next one, usually about an hour to 90 minutes after that one puppy that you'll be rolling into another. They might take a break for a couple of hours, take a little nap just so that you can go crazy. But it usually goes fairly quick after that. One of the other things during your visit into the vet, you might want to shoot an x-ray after day 45 so you know how many puppies. How many is a really good thing, because otherwise you're going to have to palpate them and you have to guess, like, I think she's done. Is she done? Or is that another puppy? Is she still swollen? Because your job isn't done until you've got all the babies out. That's knowing, and like for your first litter, I would strongly recommend you do an x-ray. Have that information where I know she's going to have this many puppies, because that way you won't have to guess as to how many babies. Hey, I'm sure you've watched a lot of videos, right, on whelping and stuff, right?
Yeah, I couldn't find my parents' breeding books, so I had to resort to 2025 Google. But no, yeah, and I have. I've watched videos, and I feel like that's what I'm going to be doing. The next 6 months of my life is going to be breeding videos as well as dog shows, because I choose not to work and put my life into my dogs, I guess. But uh, yeah, so that's the step I'm kind of at right now, is like the planning phase of, okay, I know my bitch that I'm going to breed is going to be coming into season in August timeframe. Uh, so really, where I'm at now is whelping boxes, really, like what you can go. So we're going to talk a million different whelping things, and I have so many different questions, and I'm sure a ton of people do too. But when it comes down to whelping boxes, is that super breed dependent? Is that just general? This is what you need? Is it personal preference? How do you envision whelping boxes? What are the keys to a successful whelping box?
So, all right, that's a good question. And yes, you're right. They can be a little bit breed specific, and they can also be, but there's also there's also two different. So I use two different boxes. I have a box set up that I use to actually whelp the puppies in, where I let the bitch in, and I'll go ahead and I have I use a kiddie pool, like a child's little swimming pool, and and I put a little X pen around it, and I put it right in the middle of the living room, and I take a fitted sheet and put it around the kiddie pool, and I throw some towels in there, and I let them go in there, and they dig it up, and they'll and all that, and because we have this little like Walt Disney idea that it's going to be like really like just kind of magic and all that, and it's kind of beautiful. No, there's green, you know, yeah, once they start contracting, if they haven't completely emptied out, there's some can be some poop, all of this stuff. So you got that whelping. We set up our pool. We set up the kiddie pool, and we watch them in the pool. And I have my towels on hand. I have paper towels. I have a pair of scissors. I have my expressor bulb, and then in the other like in the kitchen, I'll set up a plastic box with a thick pad or a towel in there, and I'll have a heating pad on low. And then as she has the babies, because she's not really in the mind frame of I'm going to take care of these babies. Get them born, get the umbilicus cut. If you, I usually like to leave them about an inch long. If you cut them, if you take the scissor and take your thumb and just kind of scrape them off, they'll sometimes not even bleed at all. If you cut them, a blunt cut, you'll sometimes get a little blood. Sometimes you can just twist the end; they're fine. If you want, take some yarn and just tie it off, and just like make a little loop, tie it, and it'll. That's just something that goes for sometimes bitches will worry on those umbilical cords if you leave them too long. But like I said, I usually do about 3/4 an inch, right about there. Um, you've got to keep track, and this is where you're going to be keeping your notes. That with each puppy born, did the afterbirth come? Did the placenta come? You got to keep track of that. 5 puppies, 5 afterbirths. Sometimes it comes with the puppy, sometimes it doesn't. So at your end of the whelp, that's when you usually give them like an oxytocin or a pit shot to clean them out, and you're going to go ahead and make sure you have all those placentas. A little cliff note: if you do go in for the C-section and have to have a section, bring a little Glad sandwich baggie along and grab a placenta or two and bring them back home. And after you get your bitch set up with her box with her puppies, give them to her, because that is that brings the milk down. It's full of natural oxytocin, and it gets her in the baby frame of mind. Yeah, I mean, you don't ever want to like have a bitch under anesthesia, have her wake up and have puppies on her. Bad call. It could go lovely. It could go, what are these? I'm going to kill them. It can go either way. So my advice: let her come to herself, let her eat, spread out the blanket, have a like, look at your babies, and have like a lovely little moment where you introduce them to her. And if she's not looking at them with the eyes of maternal love, don't leave them with her. uh, you know, let them nurse, put them back. When she starts to act like she wants them, then you can leave them with her. But if she's got this look like this, like I felt like in the plane when the kid was screaming behind me, that's not the look when you want to leave that baby with someone. With the person that's doing this, no, that's not your caretaker, and that's not the one. That's not the bitch that's ready for her puppies yet either. So take kind of, you got to read the room a little bit. But
Do they
then
generally, if they're like that, do they generally calm down after a little while and then
48
accept the
hours.
puppies?
48 hours. Never had, of the gazillions of puppies I've had, never had one go over 48 hours that she didn't want her babies.
So then in
So,
that meantime, you're supplementing, I would assume,
well, that
right?
means you're going and you're hooking them on her supervised visitation. You're like CPS and Chin Protective Services. You're gonna watch her with them, and then after they fill up, you're gonna take them back. And then just backward. But 48 hours, I've never had one not want the puppies within 48 hours. That's the time where it just takes their brain to go click. I want, they're mine. I'm going to take them. So then after I whelp them out in my kiddie pool and I have my little ball of slime, I can take that whole thing, pull the fitted sheet up, and I put the whole thing in the washer and lots of detergent and some bleach, and it's a contained mess. And then I set them up in the box that they're going to raise them in, and that box should be like breed specific size. Like with the chin, I use a sweater box about yay by yay, and I'll put a heating pad underneath half, and I put a carpet square or a rug down in there. I use those welcome mats from Walmart. Those are wonderful. You can cut them to fit. And because sometimes those bitches will come in after having had the babies and they're still wanting to dig, and they will be digging stuff up, and they will roll all those brand new babies up like little burritos, and they'll suffocate them because the digging is hormonal, and they might not have it, they not be done yet. But if they have a rug or something with that rubberized backing and stuff, they can't ball them up and wad them up like they're in tissue paper, because they can suffocate them. They can. That's why you don't leave blankets and towels in with brand new puppies. That they can get balled up, and anything that can happen will happen. It's like you just have to kind of sit there and kind of like look at this situation. Like with the chin, they get that long hair on their tail. I always cut that off with my bitches of having puppies, because I've had puppies get wrapped in that hair. You don't want that. That's not good. You want to make sure that you have ready to have those puppies. And those puppies are need to be, if you have for any reason where you don't think she's, the big thing is for the next month, you're going to care for her and she's going to care for the babies. That's the plan. And so you're going to feed her epically. You're going to make sure that she stays. Sometimes those bitches you want to make sure, like when they're cleaning the puppies, if they are cleaning up too many babies, their stomachs can go off. They can get acidic in their stomachs, and then they won't feel good and they won't want to eat, and then their milk production will drop. Anything can tip the balance. So you want to make sure she's eating. You want to make sure she has good gut health. You want to make sure the puppies are gaining weight. All of those things that's all on you. And for the first 2 weeks, you are just kind of like watching this little ecosystem. And she's going to be going outside to the bathroom a lot. She's going to, you want to feed her small meals throughout the day. You want to make sure those puppies are hooked on. And you want to keep notes on, what you're going to do. I don't do this anymore, but I have done it, but I don't do it anymore. Is you can weigh the babies and chart their growth. And so you'll know, green puppy is gained half an ounce, with that kind of thing. And then that's good information to have. You know, it's after you get a little bit more of a feel for it, you're probably not going to do that. But your first ones, absolutely, you're going to keep track.
And I think that's a lot of things that you do just in anything in life. When you start doing something new, you're keeping track, you're keeping records, and then, it's 10 years down the road, you've done it for 10 years, it's like you're no longer doing any of that 'cause a lot of it's just feel and experience, and I think, that applies to a lot of things in life. So, so before you actually get to whelping, how is your bitch's diet changing? Are you supplementing her with um, any pills, vitamins, minerals, anything like that before you find out she's pregnant, you got your 63 days. Are you supplementing before that to help her bring in milk? Or what are you doing with her in those time frames? And even after whelping, are you feeding her any different or just more often?
So, that's a good question. So, like with once those bitches get bred, I would say I feed them if they're in good shape and in good weight right at the point in time of breeding. I don't do anything for about a month, but then the next month I put them onto puppy food because puppy food is higher in calorie, and they need more. And then I watch their diets because there is some and the worst thing that can happen to you in the whole world is if they get overly pregnant, like a chin gets pregnant with like 8 babies. That's a disaster. But those, especially like a smaller toy dog, they can have pregnancy toxemia, where their bodies just there's not enough there to all of the life they're trying to bring on, and they can crash. So at that last 2 weeks, you watch them so close, and because they're not going to want to eat as much as they should, and so that's when you're going to be like really bringing your A game. Whatever it's like you're going to be um, either some soap food, some canned food, some whatever you're working with to get them to eat. The last 2 weeks you wanted them to eat, because the better they're eating, the better for the puppies. The better and when you're watching them, because that's and honestly, supplements are great, I guess, to a certain extent. Like once my bitches have whelped, I like to give them calcium supplements. Like you can use Tums. I don't know if Chin really comes with Cavaliers. You can just throw them in there; they'll eat them. Super high in calcium. They have Pet Cal. All of those things there. Those are really that's really important that they keep their calcium up. There because the last 2 weeks that they're nursing, that because you have the first part there where they could go pregnancy toxemia and your bitch can die with all the puppies. Then the next thing that you have to watch for is eclampsia. So when the puppies are growing good and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger and they're pulling more and more and more and more from her, if she's not eating and taking in food to balance out what they're taking from her, she can get thrown into eclampsia, which is a critical drop in calcium, and she'll have a heart attack and die. So you really have to watch that bitch, make sure she's eating, and if for any reason you think, wow, she's kind of like falling behind a little bit, or she's like these puppies are getting to it, then you're going to start. That's when you're going to say, I'm going to start supplement feeding the puppies, keeping her away from them a little bit because they seem like they're pulling her down a little bit too far, and she might need a little time away. Where, I mean, and almost any breeder that's done it a good length of time has probably come in and found a bitch with 5 week old puppies, and their bitch will be dead because she went into eclampsia in the night and died. And really, what it comes down to is that means that you didn't catch the fact she wasn't eating enough. They were pulling too much from her, and she couldn't sustain it. So there's a lot of that where you've got to keep an eye on where you're going with this. So like when I supplement my puppies, what I do is, like, if I look at puppies and they're growing, and I have bigger puppies and littler puppies, when I go to supplement them, you supplement the bigger puppies. You fill up the bigger puppies so that the littler puppies can get more of her. Because what you're giving them is not going to be as good as what she's giving them. So if you can fill up that big old male puppy or two, then he won't push out the littler puppies, and they can do, because puppies eat tiny, minute amounts of food constantly. It's almost it's almost impossible. I mean, people have raised puppies all the way from scratch, super hard, super hard, because there's a complete cycle of nursing to excrement every 90 minutes. And so, I mean, they almost get done with one feeding and then it's time to start another. And that's where those get in there. But so you go ahead, and if the puppies, if you have a really big litter, there have been times I have fostered puppies onto different bitches. Like this one has 6, this one has 2. We're gonna go ahead. You're gonna do 2. You're gonna have 4. You can move them around a little bit depending on your breed. You can supplement them. All of those things, you really have to eyes on your bitch, because sometimes you can get a little complacent and think, oh, well, this is just kind of magic and just kind of happening. And it's not. It's on you. You're responsible. You're the one who wanted the litter. So you've got to watch and make sure that they're progressing and growing and not running her into the dirt. In the perfect world, she'll have just what she can take care of. And sometimes that happens. Oftentimes that happens until it doesn't.
We're making this sound really scary and like nobody should breed, but I think, it's good to have it's good not to paint this picture of like, yeah, she's going to do everything and everything is peachy keen and roses. And then when you get in there, it's like, I'm not prepared because I didn't plan on this happening. I thought she was just going to do everything. I don't have a pair of scissors to cut an umbilical cord, or I don't have this. So I think this is an extremely good conversation. Now, you mentioned earlier about giving a shot after she's done. Is that something that you can get over the counter, or is that like you need to go to your vet and get a prescription type of thing for it? How does that work?
So oxytocin, which is that hormone that makes them contract and also brings in their milk, that is something, if you have a relationship with your vet, they may sell you a shot of that to give at the end of your conclusion of your life. Some vets are going to like go, nope, you got to come in. That's part of that during that 8 weeks while you've got your bitch vet. You need to go to have these. It's like have all of these conversations. It's like this. It's kind of like their puppies, and the whelping process is so strong and so like it's like iron butterfly wings, like they're so strong and so perfect, and almost always it goes just the biggest percentage of it, puppies are strong, the mom's strong, all of the nature is strong, but just kind of like in humans reproduction, you know if you are willing to just blindly accept the fate of fates, well, then that's how it's going to go. It's going to go really good. It's going to go really bad. Well, we lost Sally. She, I mean, that kind of mentality. We don't really accept that as much anymore, and it's not just like the survival of the fittest. So if you have these tools in hand, it's safe to breed your female. If you have these tools in hand, you will raise most of your puppies, if not all. If you have these plans in place, you won't have the trauma of having. And the worst thing in the world, you're ending up at some emergency clinic. Those places are rip-off joints about 90% of the time, and they have a bad attitude about it because they're not breeder friendly. And that's when you end up in all that. That's on you. You didn't do your homework. You got yourself in this position, and now you're trying to dig your way out, and it's going to cost you tons of money and not a great result. And it's really, you have no one to blame but yourself. And
That's one of
so
those things that that I think about when we're talking, we're sitting here talking, first couple weeks, make relationships with the vets. One of the first questions to ask your vet is, what are you available when my puppy, if I need a C-section at 1 in the morning? Because that's inevitably what's going to happen is it's going to be 1 in the morning. It's going to be 2 in the morning. It's going to be the worst possible timing. Is the vet you're picking willing to do that? If they're not, you might want to start making a relationship with a different vet, because that's what's gonna happen if you need a C-section. Most likely, it's gonna be in the middle of the night when it's inconvenient for everybody, because that's how
sure.
life works. Like it's that's just how it works and how it's most likely gonna be. But you also might be in an area where you don't have a ton of vet options. But I feel like the smaller towns that don't have a ton of vet options are probably a little bit more likely to work with you on things like that. Seems like you get into the little tiny towns, everybody knows everybody. The vet that's, the vet probably is a traveling vet because it's probably a farm area.
Some of those are your very best vets. I mean, they can be wonder. It doesn't have to be like a canine reproductive specialist, which is awesome if you have that, but it doesn't have to be. You can get very good veterinary care by someone that just the best vet in the whole world is the one that's available when you need them. That's the best vet. And just like, all right, you're a parent, you've had children, you've done the prenatal stuff, you've done all of the things. I mean, but even when you brought your baby home, were you totally prepared? Did you know everything that was going to happen?
I mean, this what I'm going through right now feels a lot like when I had my first child, because it was just like you need everything. You want to be 100% prepared as things come. It's like, you start preparing and then it's like, oh, it's a girl. So now you need girl stuff and you need this stuff. And then you get closer and you get this and then you get this. And then you have the baby and you don't use half of it, or they're colicky. So the bottles that you're all prepared with, they can't suck on those bottles and you need a different type of bottle. And yeah, I mean, it's all, and then by the second time, it's like you're not nearly as worried as you are the first time. It's that experience factor of things of you need to really get in there and do it. But I've been a proponent of preparing and not being. I don't think you can ever be over prepared. So uh, but definitely have that same type of nervousness and feeling of like, you know, this is a big thing, and you don't want to lose your bitch out of it, whether it's a foundation bitch for your breeding program or it's your pet. Like either way, it's your dog. It's a part of you, and you don't want to lose that. So you have a little bit of that fear. But what are some of like the most underappreciated tools that Dale Martinson uses in whelping that a lot of people don't think about? Maybe not like towels and stuff like that, but like what are some of the things that you found over the years that are like, I can't whelp without this?
So you can go to the store and they have like these exfoliating gloves for like in the shower, or that you put them on. They're kind of grippy, and they're supposed to like to tear the hide off of your skin to rejuvenate your cells. Anyway, those are wonderful for pulling puppies out. I mean, those work really good because you just put them on and you can get a hold of that puppy because it's slimy. It's a moving target. She's screaming. She may be trying to bite you. That can happen. And that's not the time where you go, oh, baby, it's going to be okay. Because no, she's not okay. You need to hold her under your arm, pin her between your legs, and you need to work to get that puppy out. And you've got to get the shoulders clear and then pulling down rhythmically with the contractions if you have a puppy that's stuck. If you guys sit there and go, okay, I see we've got a tail. Oh, well, that's a breech presentation. So we're going to want to get that, get the head first, and then get that bag off the face, and work on getting one shoulder, then the other shoulder, and you've got to be calm, because freaking out. There's time to freak out later. But I like those gloves because you can do a lot of gripping with that. I like having, like I say, I those baby expressor bulbs to suck the snot out, because if you've ever had to whelp when you didn't have them and you have a puppy with a lungs full of snot, then you're the expressor bulb, and ick. But oh well, you're saving them lives. So buy the bulb or you're going to get a mouthful of snot. That's on you. Then then the next thing is like have your yarn to tie off that umbilicus. You can, like, if you're super detail oriented, you can put a little iodine on the end if you want to, like, just do that, all that, but really make sure you get those lungs cleaned out. Do both nostrils and do the mouth with that. And, back in the olden days, we used to do the puppy swing to clear the
I was gonna
lungs.
ask you about that. Like, why aren't
Uh,
we need to? Shouldn't we be swinging puppies? That's like a rule, isn't it? We have to pick them up and swing them
I
upside
mean,
down.
all I can tell you is hold on. Because everyone has a story about how it went flying across the room. Um, shaken baby syndrome. I think if you have your other stuff, you can forego the swing. Because people are sometimes like, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're all stressed out. Might not be the time to be doing those yoga moves and swinging the puppies. You could have a problem with that. Uh, you know, then, like I say, just having your setup, having your plan in place, you know that's really hugely important. And then, like, if you're gonna sit up and watch them. Sometimes you can put like uh, newspaper down in there, and they'll dig on that paper and tear it up, and I mean, they'll kind of like get your attention, like, oh, she's working again. That's kind of helpful. You can kind of, because no matter how attentive you are, a whelp can take 8-10 hours. It can. I mean, that's where the magic of the C-section is. 45 minutes and you're back home. It's like going, there's a lot of charm to that. But on the downside, with the section, they sometimes aren't as ready to accept the babies as quickly. With C-sections, you do have the stitches. There's no downside of sectioning them, as far as, like, you can breed them as many times with the section as you can a natural whelp. It doesn't make any difference, really. You just take the stitches out, around just shortly after 2 weeks. When you do have a bitch that's been sectioned, you should look every day, make a point the first week especially, check that suture line, make sure it's staying clean, that kind of thing, because it's got a lot of moisture and stuff in there. You don't want it to get any kind of infection or anything going with that. You know, keep paper towels. Can't have enough paper towels. It's kind of handy stuff. You can do a lot. I mean, paper towels are great. And just watching, paying attention, being checked in, making sure that everything is going right. Knowing your dog is a huge plus. Because some breeds are more stoic whelpers, and that they're like, don't let you know what's going on. Some breeds have all of the, and every bitch is different. So some that say, oh well, she didn't eat, and so she's gonna have babies in 6 hours. Some bitches will eat in between the puppies. You don't, they're all different. So there's none of those rules are 100%. The only thing that's 100%, you got to be there. You got to be checked in. You got to watch.
And how often? So when do you start temping, and what are you looking for? What's that telling you with the temperatures?
So usually, if you go figure about 10 days before they're whelp, you start temping them like every 12 hours. And then you're going to see once they have the drop or the fall.
Are we anal temping, or
Yes. You're not in the ear or under the tongue. It works.
it's the good
And
spot?
just a little FYI, have a special thermometer you only use for the dogs. Because, like, oh, I think you have a fever, Tyson. Just put this. I mean, yeah, make sure have it be the dog butt thermometer. Because
And let your family know, like, hey, this is the dog butt thermometer,
that's
not
the
the human
dog
thermometer.
butt thermometer. Yes, do not use that for other things.
It should be in
But
a whelping box. You should have a whelping box, like a toolbox that you have all your whelping supplies in, that's labeled whelping, so you know right where it's
exactly.
at. So when it's one in
Yep.
the morning, and it hits you and you weren't expecting at one, I don't know. but have your whelping box, so all your supplies are in one spot. Now, okay, back to the temperature thing. You're so 10 days early, you're starting every 12 hours.
You do it like in the morning and the evening, morning and evening, because there's going to be a little bit of temperature change through, through that. But you're gonna, if you keep tabs on that, you'll notice a drop. And once they start to drop, it doesn't usually go back up, you know. But that's kind of they're going to whelp about around 63 days from ovulation. So like if you've done a surgical insemination, like a lot of these breeds, like Frenchies and stuff like that, where they just schedule sections. They go ahead, they let them ovulate, they wait 48 hours, they do a breeding, and then they schedule a section 60 days out. So the babies are 62 days from conception. And so you have they're not going to have them before, but they're going to be like 1 day early, which is fine, you know, that kind of thing. That's how those things are scheduled when you're going to have a scheduled section, you know, and like if you're breeding a bitch that you think she's high risk for a C-section, then you might want to look into something like that. Thing like I'm just going to plan on it, have planned section, which is usually a little harder. The next 48 hours is a little harder. That's maybe a little adjustment. You got a little still stuff there, but the whelping is clean and easy. If you can do the natural whelp, then the accepting is instant. I mean, they just like immediately want them, and that's a really easy thing there. But you really you've got paying attention, being checked in, having those plans in place, and then having your spots set up for your bitch and her puppies. So if that, so they should need to have their box and it should have heat under part and not heat under part. So you don't need to cook her alive. If she's a coated dog, consider shaving her off. She'll thank you. She'll stay with the puppies better. She'll be less likely to lay on them. You know, having the spot where they're going to have the babies. Sometimes you cover it. It needs to be a quiet, peaceful place. Not you don't want the other dogs running up to go greet the babies. She needs to have her den where she needs to have her space and she can be calm with those babies and have like be and that's not when you want to have everybody come and look at the babies, especially that first week, 10 days. Just needs to be calm, 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 and really try to only handle the puppies when she's going outside to go to the bathroom. Then you can do your weighing and all of that, and making sure that she's cleaning them good, making sure you don't have any Klingons or stuck stuff underneath the tail. Make sure that she's cleaning that good enough, that because puppies can die of poop butt. That's is a cause of death in babies. And you can there's that moment where you go, well, that puppy's falling behind a little bit. Well, that's a chance where you can tip the scales. You can supplement feed a little bit. You can, keep an eye on that one. Make sure you hook it on. I prefer hooking on before I do bottle feeding, but, and I really am not a big proponent of tube feeding. Some people are very good at it, but the big thing is with tube feeding, however much you think you should give them half of that, because the problem is people overfill them with milk, pull the tube out, the milk follows the tube, they aspirate in their lungs and they die. So if you can get them to actual suckle, nurse, that builds those reflexes. We'll have a later on. I'll show you, because I use like a surgical glove for my puppies to nurse on, because that's works really better. That's better than any bottle, and you don't have to be washing baby bottles. I mean, that works out really well, and you can just like reheat the glove one time, and just get a fresh one each time. That kind of thing it works out really good. But those are all the stuff that once you've got the litter, then you can like kind of obsess and take care of it, and kind of start to watch them develop. And you can start seeing things about them once their eyes open up and stuff. You can kind of start seeing temperament and all that kind of thing.
So as far as temperature drop, how far does their temperature usually drop?
Usually a degree, drop a degree. They'll
So
drop down.
so it goes back to paying attention and keeping good records and just kind of knowing, because if you're not observant and knowing, I mean, it's easy to miss 1 degree. But if you're keeping, if you're checking often
Right.
and
Well,
know your dog and you're engaged and paying attention, like you'll see that 1 degree drop and you'll know it. It's like a human, right? We know that we're around 98.6 degrees. If we're, over 99, we're like, oh crap, we have a low grade fever.
right. And also the time you should take the temp at the same time each day. So if you're going to temp them before you put them outside to go to the bathroom, do it each time. Don't leave them outside where they've gotten hot and run around and then take the temp, because that could vary a little bit to the other day. So you want to be able to be consistent when you temp them out. So you have her, and these are all good things you can keep in her file, her little idiosyncrasies, because there's going to be idiosyncrasies, things that she's going to be different about with her puppies, and things that you can notice about her and stuff. But I think the biggest thing is, like, especially with the section or stuff, but like when you have a maiden bitch that's whelping for the first time, you should be supportive of her, and like that introduction to the puppies, when you have them spread out, put a hospital pad out on the couch, and you lay her out there, and you're talking to her, and you're hooking the puppies on one at a time, and you can kind of like, it's a really calm, peaceful, a good thing, and they'll figure it out and they'll accept them a lot faster. And then the next time you might not even need to do that. But the first time, they're not born knowing. It's like new parents. They're not. There's some instinctual things they do, but that they might not do all good things for their babies.
It's a learning process for a first time bitch just as much as it is for the human being too, right? I mean, she's trying to figure it out the same way we are. She's got a little bit of instinct, but she's still got to figure it out as well. And I mean, they're young. I mean, if you're breeding at 2 years old, that's still pretty young. I mean, when you think about it in that terms, yeah.
Anytime after a year and a half to 2 years, that's a good age for them to have their first babies. When they're born, I do kind of do a quick little inventory, kind of see if they got dew claws front and back. You might want to cut them off on the front or back. If that's something with your breed, you can pop open the roofs of their mouth, see if they have a cleft palate. If they have a hair lip, you're going to see that, obviously. But if look and see if they have a cleft palate, then you have to decide where you want to go with that, how you want to deal with that. I don't rate those. Some people do. The Those are the things that you can kind of, and those are good things you should keep in your notes, like how many miss marks, how many this, how many this. All of those little statistical things that become more invaluable as you go along. You
Yeah,
should
absolutely. I
definitely.
mean, it goes back to what we talked about last week, record keeping. I mean, this whole process should definitely be record keeping with that bitch and be able to have all that so you can reference it. I mean, you might be 4 years down the road and just be like, man, she produces two miscolors every time, two mismarks every single litter. I mean, do you want to keep breeding her?
Do you want
You
to
got to make
double
that
on it?
decision.
If you
Yeah.
double on it, you get all miss marks.
Yeah.
All of that stuff is, you want to keep track of those things. But then, and also, if now with your cell phone, I try every week to get pictures of them developmentally, because that kind of helpful, comparing that towards later, like when you can start seeing patterns in your puppies, as this looked like this at this point, and this developed to this at this point, and so you can start knowing more about what your puppies need to look like at what point, or what you want them to look like at what point. And then you can, like on toy breed dogs, you can decide at what point you're comfortable taking deposits. I generally, by the time they're 8 weeks old, I feel pretty comfortable whether I want to take a deposit and start letting them go at 10 to 12 weeks. That's kind of, I feel good about that usually. Some breeds, like say the bigger breeds, which have so much lower mortality rates. Um, they'll taking deposits at birth, and they'll have enough extras if it doesn't work out. They have more puppies. So that kind of thing is, it kind of you can kind of figure out how you want to plan that.
And I think a lot of that depends too, like, are you a show breeder to where you might wanna see how they are developing to keep one back for yourself to be a show dog? I mean, I think there's certain things you can tell at 8 weeks, 10 weeks, but there's things where you
Yeah,
yeah, or you have all
right.
boys and it's like, "Crap, this sucks."
And then it might
Yeah.
all be available, so all of those things kind of come into play. It's like as you plan, it's like I did this breeding. I really want a red female. Oh, I didn't. I got all black and white males. However it goes, you have to kind of look and see, look and see that what you want. And if you, I got to tell you, you can make money breeding dogs, and you can make money breeding dogs ethically, and you can make money breeding dogs. Uh, I mean, as far as like quality animals responsibly and do all the responsible things with your dogs, but you won't do that accidentally. You will do that by having your infrastructure in place. You'll know I'm going to pay this much for the shots. I'm going to buy them. I'm going to have this. I'm going to that. All of the stuff I'm going to do. I'm going to have. I'm going to. You're going to know. You're going to have a plan in place as to how much you're going to spend on this, and you're going to have your options. Like I'm going to give the shots myself. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And all of that stuff. Well, because your overhead, it determines what your overhead is. So if you're going to go to the vet for everything, well, then you're going to pay top dollar across the board. You know, if that it's all what you want to do. It's all within your budget. You can do it all. There's a lot you can do yourself if you're willing to do it yourself. So, you
Well, and
know,
that's I mean, that kinda goes back to I mean, budgeting in general. We've talked about budgeting a little bit, but I mean, let's just think about a whelping box, right? Like you're talking about your whelping in a pool, a kiddie pool that you can get at Walmart for 20 bucks and a fitted sheet and some towels. So you go to Walmart, you buy a kiddie pool, you get a fitted sheet for 5 bucks, you buy $2 white towels and you got a whelping set up for 50 bucks or under.
mhm.
Most people have X pens. Or you can buy a top of the line, marketed, mass produced whelping box, like an Easy Whelp. And I don't have anything against Easy Whelp at all. I think they're good whelping boxes. But do you need to spend $250 to $500 depending on your breed? Because bigger breed needs bigger size. Do you need to spend $500 on a whelping box? That's up
I've
to you
used
to decide.
I've used cardboard. I mean, it all depends as to what you want to do. So with my, I use I had individual plastic boxes made for my apartment units that fit in there that have the heating pad underneath them and stuff. And they're a decade older, and like the chin, I use those like sweater boxes from Walmart. I mean, so yeah, you can spend whatever you want to spend. You just really what you have to do is you have to have your equipment there. Needs to be clean. Needs to be kept up. How much you want to spend on it. That's a you thing. And it
That's
doesn't have to be.
that's like the big part is you can spend $1,000 to whelp or
Absolutely.
you can spend minimal. It depends on how you want to do it. The key part is, an easy whelp. Sure, super convenient, super nice, easy to clean, easy to wipe down. It's got the stuff that you need. Pretty expensive. You got to figure it out in your system where it's like I can throw everything in the washer and bleach it and then take my kiddie pool and wipe it down with some Lysol and clean it, whatever. You can keep it clean. That's just the biggest thing. For me, I've seen some like wood whelping boxes. I don't like that style. I don't feel like you can keep it clean. The wood's gonna soak up bacteria and all that stuff. I don't feel like you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy some of the plastic and build a whelping box. You can get a
Yep.
sweater box from Walmart, like Dale said, and I mean those are pretty expendable. If you can't, if you're using cardboard, you throw it away after that, and you get a new one for the next time. It's a cardboard box. You're not gonna wash it. Obviously, it's cardboard, but you got to think about all those little things, and you don't have to spend $300 to $500 on a whelping box. There's other options out there to use, and that all comes back to how successful you can be because I feel like if you have $1,000 budget and you're spending 500 on the whelping box, that leaves you 500 on everything else. You know, that if you can get your whelping box for 50 and be it's like anything you do in life. You got to figure out where you want to put the finances into it. If you only have a certain amount, what's the important parts for you? And you got to be able to do something that works for you. And sometimes somebody can use a nice, easy little whelping box, and sometimes you need a more expensive whelping box that fits your setup and your dogs. But there's so many
And you know,
examples out there online.
one thing you can do now, especially if you're not if you have know that you're going to be placing some, you're not going to grow these out, or however you're going to run on, then you can put reels and stuff on Instagram and Facebook, and like let people know, like, hey, I've got puppies that are going to be ready to go, in 8 weeks, and just kind of generate a little interest. This is dad, this is mom. You can kind of start as they go, even just kind of like throwing it out there, kind of like get a little following, and people can develop a lot of attachment, make little videos and little updates. What was the giraffe that had the baby a few years ago? People, they had like gazillions of people watching Daisy the giraffe or whatever to have the baby. I mean, all of that stuff. I mean, people take interest in it, they'll follow it. There's an attachment. So I mean, if you notice a litter, and I'm not going to keep them all, start doing that. Have get your homes lined up. Because part of breeding is placing. And having that kind of, so you don't end up on that hoarder show. All the hoarders are animal lovers, don't you, Jen?
I heard that hoarders show pays well though. I mean, they clean your house for you, they redo everything, plus you get money for being on there. I mean, not sure that it pays off though, you know.
Yeah, and your family goes in there and talks smack about you. What did you think about them and their problem? Have they always been that way? Yeah, yeah. Don't animal hoard. It's a
No.
bad. Yeah, that's not when you're breeding. You've got to continue to something stays, something goes. Kind of like keep your garden weeded out. That's an important thing. So everything has optimum.
I think that's a really good comparison, and we could probably do an episode about numbers, but you'll hear me and you say a lot, like, what's your number? Your number goes based on your property, your size. It's just like a garden. How many tomato plants can you plant? Well, it depends on how big your garden is, because you have too many, they're going to kill each other off. And, it's, you can only successfully grow so many in the size that you have. And it's the same way with dogs. You can only have so many successfully in the spot that you have. Otherwise, yeah, you turn into something you see on the internet or a TV show, and it's not good. Not good.
Well,
Um,
people have questions on whelping and how they're planning and stuff. You know, like I say, they can send us questions in on to the podcast, or they can also ask people that are in their area and kind of put their little get their book together, their emergency plan, and how they're gonna do it, because that's everything with it. How good it goes is totally up to them.
There's a lot of resources online, and I feel like we go back to online a lot, Google and YouTube, which can get you a lot of the basics, but asking around is where you find all the best practices and all the good tricks of the trade. Like, there's no article online that's going to say, really, like, grab the exfoliating gloves from the smelly section at Walmart because you can grip puppies better. Like, they don't say that. They're just gonna say, get the puppy out, get the sack off the head, that type of stuff. The general stuff. It's talking to other people that have whelped before that you get the best practices out of. So, don't be afraid to community with people. I know people are scary and we don't like talking to people, but build a community and network of people is always nice too. So I think, for one of the next upcoming episodes, we can end this episode with how we started with getting canceled. We could do an episode on vaccines and really see, how many people we can get ticked off, if we talk about vaccines.
Yeah, we need to ruffle some feathers and shake it up a little bit.
That's one of those things where it's like there's so many different opinions on whether it's human or dog. Everybody's got an opinion on vaccines, and none of them equal the next person's opinion.
dogs really, unless they're totally a cuckoo, is anti-vax. I mean, they have different ideas as to how many and all that, but dog people, we have seen how vaccines have kept our dogs alive and kept them healthy and eradicated distemper and made parvo. Parvo didn't doesn't have to be a part of your dog life. If I mean, you can. Those are things that, we've seen it firsthand. How it's been a long time since anybody's lost a rabid dog in the corn crib next to Old Yeller. I mean, these things can be with good vaccine protocol don't have to be part of having your dogs.
So that might be something that in an upcoming episode, very near future, is vaccine protocols and what Dale's experienced with vaccines over the years. So thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. We tend to be an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. And we enjoy seeing the comments starting to come in more and more every single day. Dale's getting some, I'm getting some, the page is getting some, and we're getting geared up to do another listener question podcast. We want to try to do one of those a month. So make sure you get your questions in. We got a few in already, but we could use a couple more. So if you guys are got some burning questions for Dale or myself, or just a topic you want us to discuss, get them in to the Facebook group, and we'll get them added to the list, and we'll have Dale talk about them here. That's all for this episode. Make sure you subscribe, like us on your favorite podcast network, join our Facebook group, YouTube channel, all the social medias. Make sure that you follow us. I feel like we just bundle that up into one. The one we don't have is TikTok. That might be coming soon. We might have to do a TikTok. I know Jane wants to do a TikTok, so maybe she can run our TikTok. All right. Anything else to add, Dale, before we sign off?
Hey, happy whelping. Breed those dogs. It's a good thing. We make don't make very many things in America, but we can make some really good dogs.
Do it ethically, be prepared, and have fun doing it. So, for Dale, I
Absolutely.
am Tyson. We will talk to you guys on the next episode. Have a great day. Bye now.